You're doing good, though.
Thank you. I gotta show you again. Can you see Sam in there?
We got puppies, so.
We got a puppy. 3.5 people. He's so cute. Assisted suicide is a topic that most people have an opinion on. But today I don't want to talk about opinions. I want to talk about why or why not people support assisted suicide. So today I put together some research as to why people feel one way or the other. I'm using this as a way to discuss a topic that's not talked about very much. So I'm going to go over a little bit of a history of assisted suicide, why someone would be for it, and why somebody would be against it. To start off, what is assisted suicide? I think most people know what assisted suicide is, but just to be safe, assisted suicide is when somebody helps you die when you're chronically ill or terminally ill. This could be a physician, it could be a family member. Normally it's when they give you a large dose of a drug to kill you. When I think of assisted suicide, I think of Dr. Kevorkian. Sometimes he's also known as Dr. Death. He was a doctor who believed heavily in the fact that assisted suicide should be legal. According to an article by Tigris and Swartz, in the 90s, Dr. Kevorkian helped more than 40 patients commit suicide by overdosing them. At the time, there was no laws to prevent this, so even though he did go to trial for one of his murders, he was let go because there was really nothing they could do about it. But that caused the people to be pretty upset. So they ended up changing the law, and he was eventually charged with murder because he recorded himself doing this to another patient. Dr. Kevorkian is really well known for being the person who kind of brought assisted suicide back into the light in our modern world, I guess you would say, even though this happened in the 90s. It's kind of what people of our generation think of when they think of assisted suicide. So now that we went over some history, why would somebody be for assisted suicide? The biggest point that I found was that people want to have the medical right to die with dignity. According to C. Wellman, there ought to be a legal right to a physician-assisted suicide in order to enable qualified patients to avoid unnecessary suffering. Basically what he's saying here is that people should be allowed to choose their fate when they're chronically ill or terminally ill because they're facing pain or suffering. On the opposite side, why would somebody be against it? Well, according to Dr. Rex Green, a cancer specialist in Los Angeles, in an interview with Golden, the most powerful predictor of ill health is people's income. Legalization of assisted suicide plays right into the hand of managed care. What he's saying here is that insurance companies are more likely to refuse to give the poor population the cancer treatments or like life-saving treatments that they would need. And then in turn, this will cause them to suffer financially. And so they may choose to take their own life because they don't want their families to take that financial burden on when they're gone. It's also supposed to be a means to end people's pain, but later on in the article, Golden goes on to say that all but one of the people in Oregon, where assisted suicide is legal, who reported to have used the state's assisted suicide law in its first year, wanted assisted suicide not because of the pain, but for fear of losing their functionability, autonomy, and control of their bodily functions. So at what point do we draw the line? Because in that case, you could say, well, somebody who was paralyzed in a motorcycle accident could be like, well, I don't want to live anymore because I'm a construction worker and I can't do my livelihood anymore. Now, that's not really right. You shouldn't be able to just choose to die because you can't walk anymore, because there is other ways to live out a healthy and happy life. So at what point do we say, like, you're not a candidate for this? And I think that's mostly the reason why people would be against it. There's also the religious aspect. A lot of people just don't believe in it. So there's that. In the end, there are many viewpoints to be for or against it, but I think the point isn't to change your opinion here, but to just give you some more information on assisted suicide. There was a lot of history going as far back as Greek times. Like my friend and I were talking before I started today about how Socrates is basically forced to commit suicide. So why would somebody be for it? There are many reasons, medical reasons usually. They don't want to watch somebody suffer. And at the same time, why would somebody be against it? Usually pretty much the same reasons, which is kind of ironic, but it's just a different way of looking at it. I hope this helps learn some different viewpoints on assisted suicide. Thank you. Can you see in there?
Yep.